Hey everyone, it is Thursday for me, so I wanted a kind of simple, straightforward weeknight dinner, but maybe add a luxurious edge to it. So this is spaghetti and meatballs. That's what's eating way today. These are my adventures in home cooking. And thanks for being here. Consider liking and subscribing just to help me grow my channel. I would love your support. So to start with the meatballs, we're gonna start with a small onion. I'm just gonna go ahead and dice that right up. I know this, I don't know, maybe it's untraditional, but my dad always made hamburger patties with raw onion in them, so it's a little nostalgic for me. I'm also prepping some garlic, just getting that out of the skin and giving that a rough chop. And into a bowl we go with both of those. So I actually had some old panko crumbs that I needed to use up and some Italian seasoned crumbs that normally I don't have. Normally I'm just a panko household and dress them up myself, but I had them, so I'm gonna use them. I'm just putting in an egg, and then of course normally you would do milk. I'm just doing about a quarter cup of heavy cream because that's what I have on hand, and that's gonna work out just perfect. It's not a problem. Now adding the meat to that and getting our seasonings all ready. So this is some basil, oregano, red pepper flakes, of course salt and pepper, and I find with heavy meats like this especially, a little pinch of some citric acid goes a long way just to round out the flavor. So I'm adding those right into the bowl, and now we're almost ready to mix that all up, but final ingredient, we are gonna do some freshly grated Parmesan cheese, because why not? So into the bowl we go, and now we are just gonna give that a little toss with our hands. Don't worry, we washed them. And to me, it was looking not quite green enough, so I went ahead and chopped up some basil, as well as a little dash of some dried parsley. So you can see it kind of livened it up a little bit. So now our meatball soldiers are ready to go rest in the fridge. So now we can get started on our sauce. So same thing with the onion, I gave that a little choppy chop. Getting our Dutch oven going with some oil. Tossing those onions right into the pan. Of course, we are adding some salt and pepper. We want to season all the way along as we go. And now prepping some garlic so that it'll be ready to put in once those onions have cooked down a little bit. And our last major ingredient is some baby bella mushrooms. So just giving those a good rinse and getting them ready to go in the pot. So our onions are looking really good, which means it's time to just toss in those mushrooms and garlic all together. Of course, adding some salt and pepper. Everything needs to be seasoned at every stage as we go, and just stirring that all up together. Now I'm prepping my spice mixture, starting with some red chili flakes, some dried basil and oregano. And that's kind of all we need to get us started. So I'm tossing those into the Dutch oven with all our vegetables. And then it was feeling a little bit dry, so I thought, why not add a little extra splash of oil to give those herbs and spices something to toast in a little bit. And of course, stirring that all up. After a minute, I thought it was time to add some tomato paste. So I plopped in a couple tablespoons and just giving that a good stir so the tomato paste can get a little toasted. Now I'm prepping our crushed tomatoes. Those are just gonna go right in the pot. And after adding some salt and pepper to everything, we can just give that a good stir and kind of let it simmer, let it do its thing. So I wanted to prep some more lively herbs to toss in here. So I had some basil, oregano, and bay leaves. The basil and oregano, I'm just giving a rough chop to. I'm not too fancy. It's all gonna cook down anyway, right? So we are just tossing those in and giving that another stir. Now that all is just gonna simmer together and we're gonna have a lovely sauce. So now just putting a lid on there, honestly, to reduce splatter. And I figured it was time to start decanting some red wine. So after a couple of minutes, that sauce is looking awesome. Cheers, my husband and I needed to pour a glass and actually reserve some of that wine, about half a cup, to go into the sauce right here. So I figured this would give it the luxurious edge I was looking for after a hectic Thursday. Just giving that a big stir so that can all simmer together and really do its thing. And now it's time to turn our faucet on, get some water going. There's a bunch of salt in our pot there. After tasting the sauce, I thought it needed just a little bit of rounding out, so I went ahead and added about a teaspoon of sugar in there, as well as a final drizzle of olive oil just to kind of round out the flavors. So now back to our meatballs. We're gonna get our cast iron going with a base layer of oil. Got these guys out of the fridge. They're looking good and ready to go, and we're just gonna plop them in. So they're just simmering and doing their thing. A couple minutes on each side before we give them a little flip. And I aim to do about 3 sides with kind of a sear so they get crusty. So it becomes a little bit, I don't know, almost triangular, but that's all right. The flavor's great. I will say a couple of these got a little bit darker than I would normally do. I'm still getting used to filming and cooking, so it's a little bit of a learning experience. To finish these off and just make sure they're fully cooked through, I'm doing about 10 minutes in a 350-degree oven, nothing too crazy. So with those almost done and everything else wrapping up, it's time to prep our finishers. So I'm just grating up some fresh Parmesan cheese as well as some basil. And now I'm putting in our noodles, which means it is almost time to eat. Our meatballs are looking awesome. They are done, so taking those out now. And of course, I reserved some of that pasta liquid to go into the sauce as kind of our last component, giving that a kind of final stir and just giving it a couple minutes to all come together. Once the pasta was drained, I tossed that in a little bit of oil just to keep it from clumping together. And now it is time to layer all of this together and eat. So this came out so good. The meatballs were pretty perfect. I know the heavy cream and onion are maybe a little non-traditional, but it came out so good. Beyond the slight char on the outside, I would say this was like phenomenal. The red wine in the sauce really took it over the edge. It was pretty noticeable. So I highly recommend, if you want, you know, something that's pretty straightforward, but just a little different, this was a great way to go. I love a winey red sauce. So that's what's eating Wave today. I hope that you will consider liking and subscribing to help grow my channel. I know there's a lot of food content out there, but I really appreciate it, and we can always use more, right?